What is up, guys? So today I'm going to be bringing you finally the iPhone 8 review. I've been trying to get this out for a little bit, but I really wanted to just make sure I knew, I wanted to use the phone for a reasonable amount of time to kind of give you like my solid opinion on it, and I also didn't want to like base the review on like the honeymoon period, I guess. So I've had the phone for exactly a month as of yesterday, and I'm ready to finally give you guys my opinion on it. So of course this is the iPhone 8. This one of course is a gold 256 gigabyte model, which is the one I decided to go with. The first thing I'd like to mention right off the bat is the increase in storage capacity, which is nice. So now the iPhone 8 only comes in two storage tiers. You get 64 or 256 gigs. So finally the base storage is very, very reasonable, if not, a little bit more than necessary, which is, thank you, Apple, for finally doing that. Of course, there is a $50 price hike for the base iPhone now. It's now $699 instead of $649, and the 256 gig is about as expensive as the 256 gig always was, and there is no 128 gigabyte middle tier anymore, so it's now $699 or $849, which is the one I have here. I, of course, decided to go for the 256 because why the heck not? So the first thing you might notice about the phone versus like a 7 or a 6S is the all-glass frame now. Well, mostly glass. The the band is still 7000 series aluminum like it has been, but we now have a very attractive front and back glass design, which actually really reminds me of the iPhone 4 and 4S. Of course, the iPhone 4 is my first smartphone, so I'm really partial to this design, and I also love the way glass looks on a phone. So I'm really glad they brought that back, and I'm also really glad they got rid of aluminum, because I have historically had both my 6, 6S, and 7 to certain degrees bend. Of course, the problem got better as time went on. The 6 was obviously the worst, but all of those phones for me bent a little bit, at least a little bit, that is, because I kind of have an active lifestyle, so I just got tired. I was kind of just sick of aluminum, and I'm really glad that they finally changed the exterior to glass. And of course, in doing that, just kind of like the 4 and 4S, not really because the band is still aluminum, but we now have a stainless steel midframe inside the phone, which is considerably stronger. I've watched like torture tests and bend tests of this phone, and this thing is just really, really strong. So you shouldn't have any worries about this guy bending in your pocket or anything like that. As for the feel of the device, it's a little bit heavier than an iPhone 7, but it really feels nice. Like, it's not like, I don't find it annoying, at least. I know some people have said, gosh, the extra 10 grams is just too much for my little hands to handle, but I think it really gives the phone a nice hefty feel to it over like an iPhone 7, which was actually pretty light for a phone, and just kind of, this just feels more quality. It feels like I'm holding like a really nice piece of hardware, so I really like that. Of course, the external dimensions are pretty much the same. I believe it's only 0.2 millimeters thicker in all directions, or 0.1 millimeters even. So pretty much all iPhone 7 cases should fit unless they're really tight fitting. I have this Tech 21 Impact Clear case, and I bought this for my iPhone 7 originally, and it fits perfectly on the 8, no problems at all. So most 7 cases should fit the phone just fine, so that's really nice. Of course, the next thing I want to talk about is the screen. Of course, we still have the same size and resolution as last year, so that's not too exciting. But now we actually have a True Tone display, just like that was introduced originally on the iPads. And basically what it is, it's sort of like a full-time night shift. It's not exactly like that, but it pretty much what it does is it adjusts the color temperature for the lighting in the room that you're in, or any sort of lighting condition that you're in. So it's theoretically it's supposed to be easier on the eyes at night. I've always been a huge fan of that F-Lux software on the Mac, and I was really happy to see the night shift was put on the iPhone, and this is just kind of taking it to the next level. Night shift and True Tone are not the same things, but I would say this definitely is kind of a neat feature. Of course, again, we first saw this on the iPad, but now it made it to the iPhone. I'm really sad that Apple did not decide to put a ProMotion display from the iPads in the iPhone, because like I've used the iPad Pro with the ProMotion display and it is just god tier. So like I really wish they would have put it in the iPhone. But other than that, I mean, you know, we obviously have our 326 pixels per inch, just like the iPhones have been since the iPhone 4. Of course, I mean, I feel this is adequate for a smartphone at a normal viewing distance. Like, yeah, if you get really up close, you can see pixels and stuff, but I mean, it's not a huge deal. Yes, it would be nicer if it was a little bit higher resolution. Yes, it would be nicer if the bezels were a little bit smaller, but I feel it's not necessary, and I really honestly don't care. The display is excellent, any way you put it. Of course, the next thing I really want to talk about that's you know, kind of noteworthy with the iPhone 8 is, of course, the SoC. Of course, now in this we have the same processor that's also in the iPhone 10, in case you were wondering, the Apple A11, and that guy is running at about 2.3 gigahertz as far as we know, which is really nice. Of course, that's all fine and dandy, but the real big news here is previously the A10 Fusion that was in the iPhone 7 was kind of a quad core, but it operated in kind of like the big dot little way, in that only 2 cores could be powered up at one, or used at one time. So you had 2 high power and 2 low power cores, and the iPhone would intelligently switch between those 2 sets of cores to you know, optimize performance and battery life and what have you. Now we have a 6-core processor in here, so we have 2 high power cores and 4 low power cores. That is, Apple says it's 70% faster than the iPhone 7. And I feel that is that's pretty accurate. I mean, this A11 is currently the most powerful SoC in a smartphone right now. And you don't even have to take my word for it. Here is a Geekbench from a while back. This is like absolutely ridiculous. We look at that multi-core score. It's just annihilating every other phone out there. And even the single-core score is quite impressive. So this is an absolute powerhouse. Of course, I think Apple was trying to make this processor good, not only because they should, but for also the facial recognition and like the machine learning, whatever that is, on the iPhone 10. And of course, it's really nice to see the iPhone 8 has such a powerful processor. Of course, the iPhone's kind of been leading the market in terms of this for several years now. They've always been the most powerful smartphone to come out, and it's always taken Qualcomm a long time to catch up. But this is just really, really impressive, so I'm really happy about that. I'd like to move on to the cameras next. Of course, we still have a 12 megapixel camera in the rear and a 7 megapixel camera in the front, but I believe the aperture of this guy has been lowered to f1.8, and the reason I think that is because while this camera is very impressive in its own right, and it is a solid improvement over the 7, by far the most noticeable improvement has been with low light photography, which is just worlds better. I'll go ahead and throw up a couple sample images as I speak right here, but wow, the low light performance is absolutely amazing on this phone. Like, that is the biggest thing I was really impressed with the camera when I first used it. The front facing camera, of course, is honestly, it feels pretty much the same as the FaceTime camera on the iPhone 7, which is fine. It's adequate, but I really don't use it all that much. And the other thing I'd like to mention that this phone can do that no other phone can currently do is it can now shoot 1080p at 240 frames per second, and it can do 4K video at 60 frames per second, which is pretty insane. No other phone is capable of doing that right now. And of course, that's thankful to not only the new HEVC format that Apple is using, but also the processing power of the ISP in the Apple A11 that makes this all possible nice and smoothly. So that's really, really nice. Of course, I'd like to go ahead and just end off this review with a quick note on battery life. Apple says this phone is about the same as an iPhone 7, but I've actually found it to be slightly better. Of course, I don't have any battery stats because I plugged my phone in and stuff, and I think I updated iOS. So that's you know, I don't have any battery specs to show you, but this thing confidently can get me through a day, and I can end the day around, I don't know, evening time with about 25%, and that's with, I would consider, moderate usage. So I'm pretty decently satisfied with the battery life on this phone. I think most people will find it adequate, but I've heard that if you really want really good battery life, you should get the iPhone 8 Plus. Of course, I don't have experience with that phone, so I can't share my opinion on that, but as I said, the battery life is adequate. And another reason they went with this glass back is so you can use wireless charging. Of course, wireless charging does not work through metal, but they finally added that to the iPhone 8, and something even like nicer is that it's not like a proprietary Apple standard. This is standard Qi wireless charging right here. So for example, I can use the wireless charger on my Samsung monitor just fine, and it charges the phone absolutely perfectly. So that is kind of a nice feature. I don't feel like it's, again, I don't really feel like it's necessary. Cable charging works fine, and it also charges faster, but it's kind of cool, and I like to use it overnight because I don't really care how fast my phone charges. So that's another pretty big headlining feature with the iPhone 8. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I don't want to talk about the software too much because, I mean, it's the same experience you're going to get on any other iPhone that's running iOS 11. I'm actually running the 11.1 Beta 5 right now, which is pretty much the GM, so I decided to install it. I was kind of having a little bit of small issues with iOS 11.0.3, but pretty much the software experience on this is as smooth as butter as you would think it is. I mean, everything is super fast, you know, scrolling through this phone and doing different things. Like, there's really no like lag or anything like that I've experienced on 11.1. Again, I was having some issues with 11.0.3 with some lag here and there, but I really, really doubt that's the fault of the phone, rather just the unpolished nature of iOS 11.0. So, this phone, overall, I mean, I absolutely love it. A lot of reviewers are shagging on this phone because the iPhone 10 is out there, and I personally do not like the iPhone 10's direction, and so I feel the iPhone 8 is one of the best phones you can buy right now, even if it is a little bit boring to some people because of, you know, the same screen or what have you. It's still an absolutely excellent phone, and I would highly recommend it to anyone looking to buy a new iPhone. Of course, it's hard to say if this is completely worth it over buying the now cheaper iPhone 7, which I believe starts at $550 now. So this phone is a full $300 more expensive before tax, but again, I feel like this phone is, I don't want to say worth the money because that really depends on what kind of person you are, but I am definitely glad I bought one. Thank you guys for watching this review, and I'll see you guys next time.